Hey, it's me, Dusttale, and after months, I finally managed to get my ass up and finish the Dusttale video series, where I finally cover the Dusttale novel. The Dusttale novel will be down in the description at the pinned comment, so if you want to read it for yourself, read it for yourself. And also, since only one person found out what kind of background music I used, I will tell you all what background music I used. I used the main menu theme from Disco Elysium, a peak video game with a peak protagonist, so if you want another awesome video game, please play Disco Elysium. Anyways, since I know none of you are interested in Disco Elysium, I welcome you all to my Dusttale compilation video. So I wish you all a bloody good time watching this shit, and please like and subscribe. Have fun! The first chapter of the Dusttale novel begins with the world resetting once again, and Sans, who remembers past timelines, contemplates on where he should start his killing spree once again. Since he always did start his killing spree outside of Snowdin or in Snowdin, he remembered that he never went back to the ruins and knocked at the door to kill Toriel, since he always wanted to avoid a promise that he couldn't keep anymore. So he decided to visit and engage in a familiar pun-filled conversation with the old lady. But mid-conversation, he destroys the door and kills Toriel without hesitation. He's unfazed by this act, but is quite satisfied with his increase in his love and EXP. As the dust settles, he calls Toriel a good friend, highlighting his detachment and ruthless nature. The timeline once again resets in the second chapter, the Dusttale novel, and it begins with Sans teleporting to his house to get some sleep, only to get 2 hours of sleep because of a nightmare. In this nightmare, he finds himself killing. He finds himself in an empty, decayed Snowdin, overwhelmed by falling dust, which represents the remains of the monster that he has killed over the course of all the different timelines. Because of that nightmare, Sans wakes up and returns to his post, only to get hit by fatigue and detachment, where Sans starts a systematic slaughtering of Snowdin's monsters. In a dreamlike state, believing that he is still in a dream, he continues killing indiscriminately, only to realize too late that he has murdered pə-PY-rəs. Horrified, he desperately convinces himself it's just another nightmare, but a sinister voice in his head mocks him, revealing the truth: he was never asleep. Tormented by his own mind, Sans clings to pə-PY-rəs' dust-stained scarf, unable to escape his guilt. The horror intensifies as it goes back of pə-PY-rəs manifests itself, relentless pursuing him, no matter wherever he runs. Sans cannot escape his sins, trapped in a walking nightmare made by himself. Another timeline resets once again in the Dusttale novel. Sans is dissatisfied with his previous run due to Alpha's evacuation of the monster kind. After witnessing Sans' action throughout the cameras she set up, Sans therefore decides to eliminate her first to prevent any future interference. He teleports to her lab and swiftly kills her, dismissing her fearful protest. Now free to collect EXP, he moves to Waterfall and massacres the monster there, leaving behind only echo flowers that eerily repeat their final words: "Please for mercy," screams of pain and despair. Delighted in the carnage, he hunts down every single monster, ensuring no one is left alive. However, his killing spree is interrupted by Undyne. Realizing Alphys is dead and hearing the echoes flower, Undyne furiously confronts Sans. She attacks with relentless determination, proving to be a formidable opponent. As the battle escalates, she unlocks her undying form, vowing to strike down Sans and end his madness. Despite her overwhelming power and resolve, Sans ultimately gains the upper hand throughout his teleportation and trickery. With a brutal final attack, he kills Undyne, acknowledging her as a true hero, but remaining focused on his goal, continuing his cycle of slaughter. Wounded but victorious, he moves on, ready for the next massacre. The fourth chapter of the Dusttale novel follows a resetted timeline, where the protagonist, aka the human, begins once again at level 1 and cautiously navigate the underground. They struggle with their fear of being hunted by Sans due to their previous no mercy runs, but finds that as long as they do not kill a single monster throughout the entire underground, Sans will not hurt them. After leaving the ruins, the protagonist warily travels the underground, expecting danger at every turn. However, unlike previous timelines, Sans does not attack them immediately. They progress throughout Snowdin, solving puzzles and sparing monsters, feeling relieved that the cycle of the mad times seem to have ended. Things take an unsettling turn, however, when Sans invites them to Grillby's, but instead leads them to the Melaton Resort, a place eerily devoid of life, covered in dust, evidence of past massacre and proof of Sans' murderous intent. Realizing the trap, the protagonist sees Sans grinning mercilessly before laughing, launching an attack, confirming the worst fears of the human. The chapter ends with a game over scream and the protagonist once again facing the consequences of their past action. The 5th chapter of Dusttale begins with a dark timeline where Sans has fully embraced his role as the ruthless killer, enjoying the cycle of slaughter each reset brings. Flowey is aware of Sans' carnage and confronts him, questioning why he continues his rampage when there's no real threat left in the underground. However, Sans counters by exposing Flowey's own history of killing and resetting timelines, calling him out as a hypocrite. Flowey, despite his past, pleads with Sans to stop the killing, offering a last chance for peace, a timeline where everyone can be free and the resets could end. Surprisingly, Sans appears to consider the idea and agrees to beat Flowey at the ruins. Later, near the ruins entrance, Sans exhibits increasingly unhinged behavior, speaking to his absent brother pə-PY-rəs as if he was still there. Flowey, disturbed by what he watches, just sees how truly broken Sans has become. But right at that moment when Flowey least expects it, Sans brutally betrays him, plucking him out of the ground and crushing his stems. Sans walks away, fully committed to the cycle of revenge, declaring that there are no second chances left for anyone. A new timeline and a new merciless killing spree has started. Sans has already killed everyone in Waterfall, and with no monster left to hunt in Waterfall, Sans turns his focus towards Hotland. He idly speculates that the human is still making their way throughout Snowden far behind him due to the lack of shortcuts. Knowing he has time, he decides to take a break. As he rests, he talks to his brother pə-PY-rəs. Throughout, it is clear from the context that pə-PY-rəs isn't actually there and is just a hallucination created by Sans. When it begins to rain, Sans notices an umbrella on the ground. Holding it up, he reminisces about the past, recalling how he used to hold an umbrella over pə-PY-rəs when they were younger, even when his brother insisted he didn't need it. He remembers a time where he got completely drenched and felt sick, joking that he must have looked like a ghost. Despite his usual detachment demeanor, the rain seems to stir something deep within him. He starts quietly holding the umbrella in the rain, lost in memories of his brother. The chapter ends with him deciding to stay like this until the rain stops, his only company being the sound of raindrops falling all around him. The last and final chapter of the Dusttale novels follows on the ongoing struggle between Sans and the human in an endless cycle of violence and resets. The human walks throughout the aftermath of a brutal battle in the core, realizing that they are late. When they try to ambush an opponent, they are instead caught off guard by Sans, who swiftly pins them to the wall using blue magic. As Sans eliminates another monster in the background, he casually taunts the human about their repeated failures, having kept their level locked at 6 for over 10 resets. However, instead of immediately attacking further, Sans proceeds to propose a truce. If the human chooses a pacifist route in the next reset, he won't interfere. At first, the human mocks the idea, but Sans eventually drops his usual sarcastic demeanor and admits that he is simply exhausted. He's been through countless resets, seen endless deaths, including pə-PY-rəs, and nothing ever truly changes. With a hollow laugh, he begs the human to stop the cycle. The human, intrigue, resets. For the first time in a long while, the human chooses a pacifist route. Everything starts as usual, but Sans' behavior differentiates, standing further away and is wary of the human's interaction. They casually go throughout the usual events, but instead of appearing at his usual central post in Waterfall, Sans stays in Snowden with pə-PY-rəs. The human frequently checks in with pə-PY-rəs, who joyfully describes spending time with his brother. When they finally meet in the Judgment Hall, Sans is relaxed and dust-free, confirming that he didn't gain any EXP during the run. He acknowledged the human choice, and being satisfied, he disappears. The human, now alone, laughs to himself, knowing they still have the power to reset everything. As they approach the barrier, prepared to raise everything again, they are getting interrupted. Sans appears, this time wearing a regular purple cloak, standing on a pile of dust. He thanks the human for letting him have time with pə-PY-rəs, but reveals that he never trusted them, since the human never intended to uphold their truths in good faith. Sans makes his final move, his eye turned red and cyan, and the fight begins anew. And so ends the Dusttale novel. If you want a real conclusion, the Dusttale novel hasn't a conclusion. Not because the writer hasn't thought about one, but because, like the genocide run that the human did, Sans' genocide and the curiosity of the human is endless and a never-ending cycle. They will continue fighting against each other, and they will continue resetting and resetting over and over again until the human will be bored, which will never happen, since they are too determined, and Sans will fall deeper and deeper into madness. That is the tragedy of dark murder, Sans. Get it? Okay. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you want more content, please write down what you want to see more of. Goodbye for now.